All right, so I'm going to talk about a command, an Illustrator command called the Paint Bucket tool, which is very similar to the Hatch command in Rhino. It's over here. It should be underneath this icon where it says Shape Builder tool. It's just called Live Paint Bucket. If you don't see this Live Paint Bucket tool, just make sure you are just in the Essentials Classic. That's the workspace that I'm in, and now I'm able to see the Live Paint Bucket tool. But instead of talking about it directly through Illustrator, I'm going to export a simple drawing from Rhino into Illustrator. Just going to start off just by just a simple box. And I know I'm going to make this, make a 2D drawing out of this, so I'm going to just move this out of the way. Just do make 2D. And just to set up this example, I'm going to organize these into separate layers just to show you what can happen in the Live Paint Bucket command in Illustrator. So I'm going to have 3 layers. I'm going to have a thick layer, medium, and a thin layer. And I'm just going to assign these lines to different layers. So these 2 down here will be a thick layer, for example. Change object layer. The perimeter will be medium. Change object layer. And these inside lines will be thin. And then change object layer. And then I'm just going to add a simple hatch. Just to the top one. And I want this to be solid. So just a solid hatch. I'm going to add this to a hatch layer. Hatch. And change object layer. Okay, perfect. So I'm just going to export this into as an Illustrator drawing. Export selected. Just take this into save as an Illustrator file. I'll just do a screenshot, that's fine. Or you can do export it at a scale. And then just open up this file in Illustrator. And just for here, I'm just going to make this slightly larger. All right. So again, I had these separate layers. All my layers came in, right? So I can start to rearrange these. So the thick layers, I can select these. I can change these to like dark color. I'm going to make these a little bit thicker. I'm going to select the medium ones by selecting the circle. I'm going to make this like a dark gray. Make these a little bit, change these slightly different. I'll do a 3. And then do the thin ones on the inside. I'll do like a light gray. And I'll make these like a 2. All right, so I have my different line weights, and I can adjust the hatch, for example. Adjust the color of the hatch. And just say, for example, okay, that I have my drawing ready, I have it set up. The one thing I want to pay attention to is my layer order, right? Like I don't want this to happen, so I have to probably put my thin line at the bottom so that this doesn't happen. Probably have the same thing happening over here with my my medium line. So again, do that at the bottom. Just rearranging my layer order, and I probably have the same thing with my hatch. Yeah, the lines are not coming out correctly, and that's because the hatch is on top. So just drag the hatch all the way to the bottom. There we go, it looks better. So now after setting up my drawing, I realize I like it, but I wish I had hatched these, or maybe I completely forgot to hatch these. I exported this, I hatched this too quickly, and I realized I forgot this, and I should have done this. So I could go back into Rhino and rehatch them and do all this all over again, or I can just do this in Illustrator by using the live paint bucket command. The only thing with using this live paint bucket command, it does some strange things. So let me just do this first, and then just to show you what will happen. So I'm going to select this drawing. I'm going to click over here on live paint bucket. Make sure you have a color selected for the fill. And I'm going to click here and click here. And I have this set up, and it doesn't seem like nothing happened other than these objects getting filled in. But if I look over in my layers, I can see all my layers, all that work that I spent to get these individual layers with the different line thicknesses and the hatches. Everything's smushed down to this one layer. And that's the bad thing with using the live paint bucket tool. That's what it does. It smushes all your lines, everything that you selected, into one layer. So now if I want to come back in here and just adjust the line thicknesses for these lines or these lines, I have to select them individually, right? Because they're no longer part of this layer, or the individual layers. So I double click to get back outside. It's not really what I want. I would still want to have all my separate layers. So I'm going to undo this a couple times until I'm back to I started before I used the live paint bucket command, and I will show you how I use the live paint bucket command in Illustrator. Just hit Control Z a few more times, and maybe, yeah, there we go. So in there, I'm back to having all my individual layers. All right, so the way I use it is I know using the live paint bucket command, it's going to turn this into like one big object. So I normally select everything and I copy it off to the side by clicking on the black arrow tool, holding down the Option or the Alt key and dragging this out of the way. And by holding down either the Option if you're on a Mac, Alt if you're on a PC, it should copy it off to the side. You should see a little double arrow icon making sure that you're copying it. I'm also going to hold down the Shift key to make sure that it's orthogonal and just copy it off to the side. Now that it's copied off to the side, now I'm going to use, to the copied version, I'm going to use the live paint bucket command and make sure I have a certain color in there. Doesn't really matter what it is for now. And fill that in. I know that it now smushed all of this into one layer, which is okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially break this apart into the individual pieces. I'm going to select that object, come over here to Object Expand, which is kind of like exploding it. I want to make sure all these three are checked and hit OK. All right, so now it's expanded and exploded it. The only thing I have to do is I have to ungroup it, and I have to ungroup it twice. So I ungroup it once, and I ungroup it again. And as soon as I do that, now I'm left with the individual pieces again. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to select the two hatches, or the two live paint buckets that I just did. I'm going to scoot these over. Again, I'm just holding down Shift, and I'm just moving them over till they align back here. I want to make sure that these are in the correct layer, which they are not right now. So I'm going to click this little square and drag that square to the correct layer, which is down here in Hatch. So now they're in the correct layer. I can delete this object because I don't need it anymore. And now I can adjust these how I need to, and I can even adjust them independently since they are two different hatches or paint buckets. And now I have these all back together again.